The longships crested the dawn-grey waves like hungry wolves, their dragon prows cutting through the mist as oars dipped in perfect rhythm. Atop the lead vessel, Ivar Jarlson stood with his hand resting on his sword hilt, his ice-blue eyes fixed on the monastery shore. Wind whipped through his auburn beard, plaited with silver rings that marked his 25 winters. The monk's bell began to toll, a warning come too late. "Odin watches," he murmured, feeling the familiar battle calm descend upon him. 3 years of raids along these Saxon shores had taught him that hesitation meant death. 3 years since the Saxons had slaughtered his father and 2 elder brothers during what was meant to be a peaceful trading mission. Behind him, his men readied their axes and shields, their breath clouding in the cold morning air. Among them stood his blood brothers, Thorald, massive as a bear with his great 2-handed axe, Gunnar, whose countless raven tattoos honored each worthy kill, and Leif, whose quiet prayers to Thor never ceased before battle. "Remember," Ivar called, his voice carrying over the creak of wood and splash of sea, "no mercy for Saxon warriors. Their blood pays our blood debt. Their gold pays our honor price." The men pounded their shields and roared. This was justice, the only justice the gods recognized. An eye for an eye, a life for a life. The Jarlson blood debt would be paid, coin by coin, life by life, until the scales balanced in Odin's hall. As the ships ground against the pebbly shore, Ivar leapt into the shallows, drawing his sword in one fluid motion. His blade, Sorrowmaker, had tasted Saxon blood across 20 raids. It would drink deep today. "For Jarlson honor," he shouted, and his warriors echoed his cry as they charged toward the stone monastery walls. What followed was chaos and glory intertwined, the screams of monks, the clash of steel, the crackle of flames. Ivar fought with cold precision, each strike deliberate, each death a small payment toward his father's weregild. He felt nothing as he cut down the Saxon guards. These were not men to him, merely debts to be collected. Then came a sound that did not belong among the death cries and battle shouts, the ring of a sword parrying his own. He turned to find himself facing not a monk nor a common guard, but a shield-bearing warrior who moved with lethal grace. The warrior wore Saxon mail but fought with Norse skill, blocking Ivar's strike with a round shield before countering with a swift sword thrust that nearly found his ribs. Only years of battle instinct saved him as he twisted away. They circled each other amid the chaos, exchanging blows that rang across the monastery courtyard. His opponent was shorter but quick, anticipating his moves with uncanny precision. A lucky strike knocked Ivar's helmet from his head, and in the same moment, he hooked his foot behind his opponent's ankle, sending them crashing to the stone floor. He raised Sorrowmaker for the killing blow, only to freeze as the fallen warrior's helmet rolled away, releasing a cascade of golden wheat hair. A woman's face glared up at him, fierce blue eyes burning with hatred, a thin scar tracing her cheekbone, her teeth bared in defiance. "Finish it, Northman," she spat in perfect Norse. "Or does your courage fail when your enemy wears a woman's face?" Ivar hesitated, sword still raised. "Who taught a Saxon woman to speak the tongue of the North?" "The same who taught me to kill Vikings," she replied, blood trickling from a cut on her brow. "My mother!" A shout from Thorald broke the moment. More Saxon soldiers approached from the western wall. Ivar made a decision that would alter the course of his WYRD forever. Instead of taking her life, he hauled the woman to her feet. "You fight with honor," he said. "You'll bring a better price alive." He bound her wrists and dragged her toward the ships, ignoring her curses. By sunset, the monastery was a smoldering ruin behind them as their ships, laden with plunder and captives, sailed north toward the lands of ice and saga. The woman was called Nyssa, Harald's daughter, and she was no Saxon. This Ivar learned during the voyage north, as his captive, initially silent save for curses, gradually revealed her tale. Her mother, Freydis, had been a famed Shieldmaiden who had married a Saxon lord after being captured in a raid. Rather than accepting thraldom, she had won her captor's heart and hand, bringing her Norse ways to his household. "My father respected her strength," Nyssa said on the third night at sea, her voice low as the other captives slept. "He allowed her to teach me the old ways, the shield wall, the sword song, the sagas of our ancestors." "Yet you fought against your mother's people," Ivar replied, studying her face in the dim light of the ship's lantern. They sat near the prow, far enough from the others that their words would not carry. Nissa's eyes flashed. "I fought against raiders who burn and slaughter. I care nothing for where a man was born, only for what he does with the life the Norns have given him." Her words pricked at something in Ivar's chest. "The Saxon slaughtered my father and brothers during a peaceful meeting. Blood demands blood. And when does it end, Ivar Jarlson? When every Saxon and every Northman lies dead? Is that what the gods truly wish?" He had no answer, and so he retreated into silence, but her words followed him into uneasy dreams. When they reached the fjords of his homeland, Ivar did not place Nyssa among the other thralls. Instead, he brought her to his own hall, a long wooden building overlooking the sea, where carved dragons adorned the gables and smoke rose from the central hearth. "You will serve in my household," he told her. "Your knowledge of both Saxon and Norse ways may prove useful." "I am no man's thrall," she replied, chin lifted in defiance. "Then consider yourself a guest who cannot leave," he countered. "Unless you prefer the slave markets of Hedeby." That night, as his household celebrated the successful raid with mead and boasting, Ivar watched Nyssa from across the hall. She moved with the confidence of a free woman despite her captivity, her golden hair caught back in a simple braid, her movements efficient as she helped serve the feast. Several times, he caught her studying the doorways, the weapons on the walls, measuring her chances of escape. "She'll slit your throat in your sleep," Gunnar warned, following his gaze. "I've seen that look in a wolf's eye before." "Then I'll die knowing I was killed by a worthy opponent," Ivar replied, raising his horn in silent salute to the woman across the room. Nissa's eyes met his, cold and calculating. She did not look away first. Spring gave way to summer, and Nyssa remained in Ivar's household, not quite thrall, not quite free. She worked alongside his sister Sigrid, learning the ways of a Norse household while Ivar prepared for the summer raids. Each evening, Ivar would ask her to join him by the hearth, where they spoke of their different worlds. "Why do you raid?" she asked him one night as a summer storm lashed against the hall. "Your fields are fertile. Your flocks are fat. You have all you need here." Ivar stared into the flames. "We raid because it is our way. Because a man's worth is measured in the wealth and glory he brings home. Because it is easier than questioning the ways of your fathers," Nyssa finished for him. He looked at her sharply. "You know nothing of our ways." "I am my mother's daughter," she reminded him. "I was raised on tales of Freyja and Thor, of Odin's wisdom and Loki's cunning. But my father showed me that men can choose better ways than endless blood feuds." As the weeks passed, Ivar found himself postponing the summer raids, making excuses to his men about unfavorable winds and ill omens. The truth, which he barely admitted to himself, was that he did not wish to leave while Nyssa might escape, or worse, be claimed by another in his absence. One morning, he found her practicing sword forms behind his hall, using a fallen branch as a makeshift weapon. Her movements were fluid, precise, a deadly dance he recognized from their first encounter. "You fight like a Valkyrie," he said, stepping from the shadows. She did not startle. "My mother taught me that a woman must be twice as skilled to earn half the respect." "Show me the Saxon forms," he said, picking up another branch. "Their weaknesses could be useful in my next raid." Nyssa hesitated, then nodded. For the next hour, they traded blows and techniques, their makeshift weapons clacking together in the morning light. She was indeed skilled, not as strong as he, but quicker, with a cunning that compensated for her lesser reach. By the time they finished, both were breathing hard, sweat dampening their tunics despite the cool morning air. "You could have escaped by now," Ivar said suddenly. "The doors are not barred at night. My men grow careless in peacetime." Nyssa wiped her brow. "Perhaps I wait for something worth returning to." "Your Saxon home?" "My father is dead," she said softly. "Killed in the same raid that took your brothers. I have no home to return to." The revelation hit Ivar like a blow to the chest. "The raid 3 winters past? On the Saxon trading port?" "Yes," she replied, watching his face carefully. "Led by a Viking chieftain called Ragnar the Red." "Not my father's raid," Ivar said slowly. "Ragnar is our rival from the western fjords. My father and brothers went to trade, not to raid. They never returned." Nyssa stared at him, the branch in her hand forgotten. "My father spoke of Norse traders he was to meet. He said they brought amber and walrus ivory." "My family's goods," Ivar whispered, the pieces falling into terrible alignment. "Ragnar must have attacked your settlement after killing my kin and stealing their cargo." "Then we have been avenging ourselves on the wrong people," Nyssa said, her voice hollow. "Your raids against the Saxons, and your defense against Norse raiders," they stood in silence as seabirds wheeled overhead, crying out as if in mockery of human folly. The Thing assembly gathered at midsummer, when chieftains and freemen from all the surrounding fjords met to settle disputes and proclaim laws. Ivar arrived with his household, including Nyssa, who now wore the keys of a free woman at her belt, a gesture that raised eyebrows among the gathered Norse. Ragnar the Red was there with his sons, his red beard now streaked with grey but his bearing as arrogant as ever. His ships were known for their swiftness, his warriors for their cruelty. When the law speaker called for grievances to be heard, Ivar stepped forward into the circle of judgment. "I, Ivar Jarlson, claim blood debt against Ragnar Eriksson, known as Ragnar the Red," he declared, his voice carrying across the assembly field. "I charge that he murdered my father and brothers during a trading voyage to Saxon lands 3 winters past, then raided the very Saxon settlement where they were to trade, slaughtering innocents and causing blood feud between our peoples." A murmur ran through the crowd. Ragnar stepped forward, hand on his sword hilt. "Bold accusations from a young pup," he sneered. "Where is your proof, Jarlson? Or do you bring only words to the Thing?" "I bring a witness," Ivar replied, and gestured for Nyssa to join him. She stepped forward, her Norse clothing unable to disguise the proud carriage that marked her as something other than a common thrall. "This is Nyssa Haraldsdottir, daughter of a Saxon lord and a Norse mother. She was present at the settlement when Ragnar's ships came. She saw the distinctive red sail of his lead ship, the same sail he flies today. She heard the raiders speak of the Norse traders they had ambushed at sea." Ragnar's face darkened. "You would take the word of a Saxon thrall over a Norse chieftain?" "I am no thrall," Nyssa declared, her voice strong. "I am the daughter of Freydis the Fair, Shieldmaiden of the North, and Lord Eald of Wessex. I was trained in Norse ways and Saxon letters. I know the truth of what happened that day, and I will swear it before Thor's hammer and the Christian cross alike." The law speaker stepped forward, his staff of office in hand. "These are grave charges, requiring proof beyond words. How do you answer, Ragnar Eriksson?" Ragnar spat on the ground. "I say this woman lies, and Ivar is a fool for believing her. Let the gods decide the truth, I demand Holmgang." The ritual duel was the ancient way of settling disputes when evidence was lacking. Ivar nodded grimly. "I accept. Tomorrow at dawn." That night, as his men prepared his weapons for the coming duel, Nyssa found Ivar sitting alone by the shore. "You need not fight for my honor," she said, sitting beside him. "This is not your battle." Ivar looked at her, moonlight silvering her golden hair. "It became my battle the moment I realized I had been avenging myself on the wrong people. How many innocent Saxons have died because of my blind hatred? How many raids did I lead, thinking I was balancing the scales of justice, when I was only adding to the weight of wrong?" "Ragnar is a skilled fighter," Nyssa warned. "I have seen him in battle. He is ruthless." "As am I," Ivar replied, but there was no pride in his voice, only weariness. Nyssa's hand found his in the darkness. "There is a difference between skill and ruthlessness. Ragnar fights without honor. You have shown me that not all Northmen are like him. And you have shown me that not all Saxons deserved my vengeance," Ivar said softly. Their fingers remained intertwined as they watched the moon's path across the dark waters. Dawn broke clear and cold over the Thing assembly. A circle had been marked out with hazel staves for the home gang, and the chieftains and freemen gathered to witness the duel that would determine truth or falsehood. Ivar stood at one edge of the circle, dressed in light armor, Sorrowmaker in his hand. Across from him, Ragnar flexed his massive arms, his axe gleaming wickedly in the early light. The law speaker recited the ancient rules, 3 shields each, combat until one yielded or could fight no more. Stepping outside the marked boundary meant defeat. Then he stepped back and raised his staff. "Let the gods witness and judge the truth." Ragnar charged immediately, his axe whistling through the air toward Ivar's head. Ivar caught the blow on his shield, feeling the wood crack beneath the force of the strike. He countered with a quick thrust that Ragnar barely deflected. They circled each other, exchanging blows that rang across the assembly field. Ragnar fought with brute strength, each strike designed to shatter shield and bone alike. Ivar was quicker, more precise, but each blocked blow weakened his shield. When his first shield split in two, Ivar cast the remnants aside and took up his second. Ragnar grinned through his red beard, sensing advantage. The older warrior pressed forward, forcing Ivar toward the boundary. From the crowd, Nyssa watched with her heart in her throat. She had seen Ragnar fight before, had witnessed his savagery at the monastery raid. He did not fight for honor or truth, he fought to kill, to dominate, to crush. Ivar's second shield splintered under a powerful overhead strike. Before he could reach for his third, Ragnar's backswing caught him across the ribs, the blunt side of the axe striking with enough force to send him staggering. The crowd gasped as Ivar fell to one knee, blood seeping through his tunic. Ragnar approached for the finishing blow, axe raised high. "Your father died begging for mercy," he taunted. "Will you do the same, pup?" Ivar looked up, his eyes finding Nyssa in the crowd. In that moment, something passed between them, but truth deeper than words. He had been fighting for vengeance, for the past. But there, in her eyes, he saw a future worth fighting for. With sudden clarity, he understood what his father had always told him: a warrior fights with his mind first, his heart second, his weapon last. As Ragnar's axe descended, Ivar rolled forward rather than back, coming up inside the bigger man's reach. Sorrowmaker flashed once, twice, not killing blows, but precise strikes that severed the tendons in Ragnar's weapon arm. The axe fell harmlessly to the ground as Ragnar howled in pain and fury. Ivar stood, sword point at the older warrior's throat. "Yield," he commanded. "Kill me and be done," Ragnar snarled, clutching his useless arm. "Death is too simple a payment," Ivar replied. "Yield, confess your crimes before the Thing, and face the lawspeaker's judgment." Blood soaking his sleeve, pride broken before all, Ragnar had no choice. "I yield," he growled. The lawspeaker stepped forward, The gods have shown the truth. Ragnar Eriksson, do you confess to the murder of Jarl Magnus and his sons, and to the raid upon the Saxon settlement that followed? Ragnar's eyes burned with hatred, but he nodded once, sharply. It was good strategy. They had rich cargo. The Saxons were unprepared. A murmur of disgust ran through the assembly. To kill fellow Norse for profit violated every code of honor among their people. To attack peaceful traders brought shame upon all who followed the old ways. The law speaker raised his staff. The thing judges you nothing, honorless. Your lands and ships are forfeit to the family of those you murdered. You are outlawed from all Norse settlements, your name stricken from the sagas. Any man may kill you without penalty. This is the judgment of the thing. It was a fate worse than death for a Norse warrior, to die without honor, to be forgotten by the Skalds, to walk the worlds as a ghost unworthy of Valhalla. As Ragnar was led away by the thing's guardsmen, Ivar turned to find Nyssa at his side, already examining his wounds. They are not deep, she said, relief evident in her voice. But they need cleaning. There are deeper wounds that need healing, Ivar replied, looking out over the assembly. Between our peoples. Blood feuds based on misunderstanding and treachery. One wound at a time, Nyssa said softly, leading him away from the homegang circle. Autumn painted the fjords in gold and crimson as the Norse prepared for the coming winter. In Ivar's hall, a feast was being prepared, not to celebrate a successful raid, but to honor a union that once would have seemed impossible. Ivar stood before the carved high seat, dressed in his finest tunic of deep blue wool, silver arm rings gleaming on his wrists, his beard neatly trimmed and plaited. Beside him stood Thorald, now his closest adviser since Ivar had claimed Ragnar's lands and ships as Wergild. "Are you certain of this path?" Thorald asked quietly. "The Jarl still mutter about bringing a Saxon-raised woman into your household as more than thrall." "Let them mutter," Ivar replied. "Nyssa has proven her worth 10 times over. Without her, Ragnar's treachery would never have been revealed. Without her, I would still be raiding innocent settlements, perpetuating a blood feud based on lies. And your heart has nothing to do with this decision?" Thorald asked with a knowing smile. Before Ivar could answer, the doors of the hall swung open. Nyssa entered, led by Sigrid, who had become like a sister to her in the months since the Thing assembly. Nyssa wore a gown of deep green, a color traditionally reserved for a Norse bride. Her golden hair was unbound, flowing over her shoulders, and around her neck gleamed the hammer of Thor, a wedding gift from Ivar. As she approached the high seat, a hush fell over the gathered guests. Many had come expecting a spectacle, perhaps even intending to voice objections to the union of a Norse chieftain with a half-Saxon woman. But none could deny her beauty or the pride with which she carried herself, every inch a chieftain's match. The Goy, the priest of the old ways, stepped forward with mead and the sacred rings. "Who gives this woman in marriage?" he asked, following the ancient ritual. Nyssa lifted her chin. "I give myself," she declared. "As my mother, Freydis the Shieldmaiden, gave herself to my father across the divide of different worlds." A murmur ran through the crowd, some of approval, some of shock at the break with tradition. But Ivar smiled, recognizing in her words the same fierce independence that had first caught his attention on the battlefield. "And who receives this woman?" the Goy continued. "I do," Ivar said clearly. "Not as conqueror or master, but as shield brother and husband." The Goy nodded and began the sacred rites, calling upon Thor to bless their union with strength, Freyja to grant them fertility, and Frigg to watch over their household. As the sacred rings were exchanged and the mead shared between them, Ivar looked into Nissa's eyes and saw not the enemy he had once perceived, but the future he had glimpsed during the homegang, a future where understanding might prevail over ancient hatreds. When it came time for the wedding feast, Ivar stood and raised his drinking horn. "My father taught me that a man's worth is measured by the wisdom of his choices," he declared to the gathered guests. "For too long, I measured my worth in blood spilled and plunder taken. I sought vengeance without understanding, perpetuating a cycle of hatred that served only those like Ragnar who profit from chaos." He looked at Nyssa, who stood proudly at his side. "It took a Shieldmaiden from across the sea to show me a different path, one where honor lies not in blind loyalty to old feuds, but in the courage to forge new bonds." He turned to the assembly, his voice strengthening. "With the ships and wealth gained from Ragnar's judgment, I will not raid Saxon shores. Instead, I will establish trading posts where our peoples can meet in peace, as my father intended. The first will be built near the settlement where Nyssa was born, as a sign that what was destroyed in hatred can be rebuilt in understanding." Not all cheered his words, some old warriors frowned, set in their ways. But many of the younger men and women nodded in approval, seeing the wisdom in trade over endless raiding. Later, as the feast continued and skalds sang of brave deeds and new beginnings, Ivar and Nyssa slipped away to the shore where they had sat on the night before the home gang. "Do you think the gods truly meant for us to find each other?" Nyssa asked, looking up at the stars that had guided sailors across the dark seas for generations. "The Norns weave strange patterns in the fates of men," Ivar replied. "Perhaps they grew tired of the same old threads of vengeance and decided to try something new." Nyssa laughed softly. "My father would say his Christian God works in mysterious ways." "Perhaps all gods speak the same truth in different tongues," Ivar said, drawing her close. "That love is stronger than hatred, understanding mightier than blind vengeance. For a Viking warrior, you have the soul of a skald," she teased. "And you, daughter of Saxon and Norse, have the heart of a Valkyrie," he replied, kissing her beneath the watching stars. On the fjord below, the waves lapped gently against the shore, washing away old boundaries, carving new paths through ancient stone, as love had carved a new way forward through the hardened traditions of their peoples.